Can Kellen Moore or Mickey Loomis nail the Saints 2025 draft class? Will the New Orleans 2024 class rebound? Ladies and gentlemen, today, Matt Moscona. We have not watched a video from the Skonmeister in quite a bit, so I'm interested to see what he has to say here. We're talking draft. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing a few spots. I was on ESPN Radio in Lafayette, the world's happiest city, some would say, with my guy Kevin. I'll leave a link in below if you missed it. We talked draft, talked Shedeur Sanders, talked Mason Graham, talked a little bit of everything. But the draft is quickly approaching. We are 20 days away, something like that, depending on when you watch this video. So let's just call it 3 weeks. 3 weeks away from the draft. What I think is one of the most fascinating drafts, because the Saints could go in about 10 different directions, and each direction takes them on a very different path. Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Shedeur Sanders, Ted McMillan, Jod Campbell, Jalen Walker. They're all very different players. They're all good players, impact players, but they're all very, very different, right? So it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and listen to Matthias and see what he has to say.
Just over 3 weeks from the NFL draft. I'm fired up for it. Tell you this every year. Admittedly, I am a draft junkie.
Love the draft.
I will sit there and watch all 3 days of the NFL draft. A gigantic part of the draft that I love is the understanding that and the appreciation of what roster spots 50, 51, 52, 53 mean.
By the way, if you're having a draft watch party, a really fun game to play with your friends is you all bring $1. Okay, so for like the first round, you all bring $1, all right? Every single pick, you put $1 up, you declare who you think the pick will be. Whoever gets it right gets the pot. If no one gets it right, the money rolls over. If everyone gets it right, the money rolls over. If 2 people get it right, they split it, so on and so forth. It is super fun, very exciting stuff. So I did that with my friends for a long time, and it was a highlight of the year. So if you're hosting a watch party, throw that little wrinkle in there, and it'll be a blast.
And that's never been more illustrative than, like, look at what happened to the New Orleans Saints this year. I mean, you had a revolving door on your offensive line. I mean, Everybody on that line this year got hurt, except for Trevor Penning, oddly enough, an anchor at right tackle. But think about all the flux you had at that position. So, yeah, man, like when you're battling for roster spot 53 and you're the rotational offensive lineman, that's probably going to be on special teams. But if someone goes down, you got to be versatile enough to play guard or center because you're a valuable roster spot. That's why a guy like Will Clapp is so important. But you find these types of guys in the draft. We focus so much on what you're going to do with the first round, but your depth in the draft is what matters so much. Well, Pro Football Focus used their metrics after all of the players from 2024, the 24 draft class, played out their rookie seasons, and now advance of the 2025 draft, they've gone and graded based on wins above replacement for all these players from their rookie season a year ago to try to determine the ranking. So it's all the different things like snap counts, cumulative wins above percentage to grade out the rookie draft classes. So, for example, the best draft class from this past year was the LA Rams. They had a PFF WAR wins above replacement of 0.68. You had Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Cam Kitchens, who had great coverage. Omar Spates had a 77.6 PFF run defense grade. All these guys became starters. Jordan Whittington, Bo Limmer played over 1,000 snaps in a contributing role. So the Rams had the best draft class according to PFF. The Commanders, naturally led by Jay.
Yeah, the Rams know what they're doing. I mean, the Rams, every year they find studs, they find guys who they can't wait to get. I think Sean McVay is really good at, teams approach the draft differently. I think McVay approaches the draft similar to Sean Payton, to where he knows what he wants. Like, he knows what guys fit his mold. He knows what guys he can utilize. He knows what guys, he can plug into his system and who's going to do well there. He's not just casting a wide net. Like, he's very focused on a very specific type of player, and it's worked out. It's not a coincidence that he found or they found, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, players like that. So, yeah, the Rams are a great drafting team, for sure. They're fantastic. And it's less the goal of a draft generally should be to get players who can come in, play immediately, be impactful, and give you pure value. All right. Every snap that a rookie or a rookie contract player takes is value. It's cheap production, basically. And you can reallocate money elsewhere on free agents or keeping your better players or whatever. So that's like the general way a draft should be approached. Now, obviously, the other way to approach a draft is high risk, high reward. You take raw players, you take players with, their draft stock has fallen maybe because of injury or off-field concerns or whatever, and you try and turn that into value. You take a guy in the 5th round who you think really is a 3rd rounder with a little bit of development, whatever. Like that high development, high risk, high reward. Now, obviously, it's in the name, but doing that, a lot of volatility, because you draft a raw player, you draft a player that needs development. That means, one, they're probably not going to play immediately, so you're not going to get that immediate production that we just talked about. And 2, if they don't develop, that's a bust.
Jaden Daniels, number 2. The Giants, number 3. Followed by the Raiders, Eagles.
Okay, so it's also important, in the Raiders and the Giants case, obviously great draft class because of, in those situations, top-heavy players with Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers. And Brock Bowers had the greatest. Those are 2 of the best rookie seasons ever for pass catchers, right? So, but it doesn't always equate to great front office or great team or great developmental system. No one's going to sit here and say the Giants are just a bastion of geniuses, right? They're arguably the worst front office in sports, or in the NFL. So it is, and the draft is very random. It's not a lottery, but it's pretty damn close, especially later on. You can hit, you can miss, you throw a dart. It's not an exact science. There's more bust than not. So the draft is a very weird place.
Chargers, you can keep going. Still not at the Saints yet. Niners, Broncos. And truth is, y'all, you got to scroll a long way.
It's not hard to imagine. If you think about the Saints, right? In their draft class was a lot of those raw developmental players that we have seen previously from the Saints. I think Talise Fuaga was really good. I would say that was an absolute nailed that one. I think Kool-Aid, let's just say average, whatever. But, we'll see. You still got time to develop. Defensive backs are highly volatile anyways. And then you go a little further and you start getting into these developmental type players. Spencer Rattler, 5th round rookie, no doubt about it. High value pick, great pick. No one expected him to play as much as he did last year. Even while playing, not horrible. Hard to fault him given the situation. And then a lot of picks that were developmental long term. These guys are not going to play. These guys are special teams players or developmental players, or they're hurt or whatever. So the Saints had a weird draft class if you looked at it from a year later, but I would say it's very dangerous to grade a draft class 1 year later. I've had a lot of people say, Bo Nix, franchise quarterback. And I'll remind you, a lot of people thought Mac Jones was a franchise quarterback after his first year, right? It would have been really easy to look at Mac Jones and say, damn, the Patriots did it again. They done found the Tom Brady guy. And then, 6 months later, Mac Jones is gone. Mac Jones is no longer even playing. So you got to be really careful to grade a player after their rookie season, either positively or negatively.
Before you get to New Orleans, I'm not going to bury the lead here. According to the PFF wins above replacement grade, the New Orleans Saints draft class from 2024 graded 25th in the NFL. Now, Kool-Aid McKinstry was a highlight, as they note, of one of the worst NFL defenses. He was top 10 among qualified rookie cornerbacks in PFF coverage grades. That's good. Taliesin Fuanga also established himself as a solid left tackle at a 65.7 overall grade. But they note the collective value of the rookies was really tanked by Spencer Rattler. Rattler having to play as much as he did, and he had a 49.4 passing grade and a turnover-worthy play rate of 4.9%. Pretty bad.
So you have to kind of decide, you have to decide if that's fair. You have to decide if the draft class is tanked by Spencer Rattler, a fifth-round rookie quarterback playing in a horrific situation. If you add that context, how do you truly grade that? You know what I mean? How do you truly grade the situation, him playing? He was never supposed to play last year. Derek Carr gets hurt, and then the rest of the team gets hurt. Spencer's got to play a ton of games. So mixed bag. I think I understand. I understand the grade, but I think it is a mixed bag.
Pretty bad. So I look at it and I go, okay. Do we really trust that the New Orleans Saints front office is going to nail this? You got 9 draft picks. Do we believe there's actually going to be a representative hit rate that they're going to turn these guys into contributors? It's easy to look at your first-round pick, Taliesin Fuanga, who became a starter. Awesome. Kool-Aid McKinstry, of course, whenever you traded Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo got hurt, became a starter. Good. After that, look at the rest of the draft, y'all. You didn't have a 3 or a 4. Spencer Rattler was your 5.
All right, let's take a look at some draft classes. So I have this pulled up. So let's just look at the last 10 years. If we go back further than that, we're starting to really get into a different NFL, different style of game, whatever. So last year, okay, you don't have a 3 and a 4. So a majority of your draft picks are fifth rounders, a 6th rounder, and a 7th rounder. Hard to hit, right? A lot of those value picks that are going to come in and play immediately, you would say is the 3rd round, 4th round. The fact that we have a majority of 5th rounders. Ford doesn't play at all. I think he got hurt. Christian Boyd doesn't play at all. Zerum doesn't play at all. Okay, these guys were the developmental picks that I was talking about. When they were taken, Jalen Ford was taken, and we were told after the draft, yeah, he's going to be a special teams guy. He might play linebacker later on. Okay, so we knew exactly what was going to happen. Christian Boyd, we knew was going to be developmental, and then Zerum, super developmental. Okay, if you look at the top 4 picks, Fuaga, good. Kool-Aid, good. Spencer Rattler wasn't supposed to play. I would say, given the circumstances, given the situation, 5th round rookie quarterback playing with that, okay. You can't give him a failing grade for his situation. I mean, it's just, you can't grade that harshly. If you say C, fine, okay. Bub means the fact that he got playing time is insane. But Bub means whatever. So, even with the situation that happened last year, I don't think you can look at this class and be disaster. Now let's look at the rest. Brian Brzee, in 2023, you're still a little far out on being able to it's hard to have a full grade on players 2 years after they were drafted. Brian Brzee, Isaiah Foskey, Kendra Miller, Nick Saldivari, Jay Kaner, Jordan Howden, A.T. Perry. Okay? A couple pieces in there, a little bit of value in there. Some players, not so much, but, whatever. Chris Olave, Trevor Penning, Alontae Taylor, DeMarcus Jackson, Jordan Jackson. Okay. And Alontae, good. Trevor Penning, looks like he could be turning the corner. Played good last year. Chris Olave, good. Okay, injury problems, but can't really count on injury. So, okay, fine. Next, Peyton Turner, Pete Werner, Paulson Adebo, Ian Book, Landon Young, Quan Baker. Pete Werner, Paulson Adebo in the 2nd and 3rd, pretty nice. All right. Next, Cesar Ruiz, Zach Bond, Adam Troutman, Tommy Stevens. Now, Zach Bond doesn't see, they don't realize his value because of DeMario Davis, because of the defense that he's being asked to play. He goes to Philadelphia, obviously completely different defense, going from a 4-3 to a 3-4. You wonder if only Brandon Staley would have been around, right? But again, you got 4 picks. One of them's an all-pro linebacker. One of them's a starting right guard. Okay? Next up, Eric McCoy, C.J. Garner-Johnson, Squan Hampton, Elise Mack, Caden Ellis. Eric McCoy, one of the best centers in the NFL in the second round. C.J. Garner-Johnson, I think has played for every team in the NFL. In the fourth round, pretty good as well. 2018, Marcus Davenport, huge miss, disaster. Traquan Smith, whatever. Rick Leonard, Natrell Jamerson, Cameron Moore, Boston Scott, Will Clapp. Will Clapp might be the best pick in this draft. This is a disaster. 2018, not good. Okay, now we get to the big boys. 2017, you could argue one of the best, if not the best, draft class in NFL history. Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Marcus Williams, Alvin Kamara, Alex Anzalone, Trey Hendrickson, Al-Qadim Muhammad. Hendrickson in the third, Kamara in the third, Anzalone in the third, Ramczyk and Lattimore. This class is absolutely nuts. Coming off of Sheldon Rankins, Michael Thomas, Von Bell, David Onyemata, and Daniel Lascaux. And then 2015 to round out the 10 years that we're looking at here, Andres Pete and Garrett Grayson. Okay. If you look at every draft class, there is reason to believe that the Saints will be able to find players. There's really only one true miss draft class, and that's 2018. The rest of them, even if they're top heavy, like Eric McCoy and Chauncey, even if they're top heavy there, you can still see there are big time players, especially in that third and fourth round area. In the third and fourth rounds, you're looking at Alvin Kamara, Alex Anzalone, Trey Hendrickson, Traquan, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Zach Bond, Pete Werner, Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor in the second, Kendra Miller, whatever you think about him, Nick Saldiveri. You're finding some players in there. So we're not totally sure how Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore are going to approach this, but just from a Saints front office, I think if you look at the last 10 years, you should feel relatively comfortable or relatively confident in the belief that they will be able to find players in that third, fourth round. Okay, so are they all pros? No, obviously. No team's draft classes are going to be. But they are, for the most part, you're getting good players in almost every draft.
Bub Means was a 5, not on the team. Jalen Ford was a 5. He had 3 fifth-round picks. Christian Boyd was a 6, signed to the practice squad. And then Josiah Ezerim was your 7. Outside of your top 2 guys, Fuaga and McKinstry, which is where you want to make sure you hit, you didn't get a lot. And we focus so much on the 2017 draft class, and with good reason. It's the greatest draft class in Saints history and one of the greatest draft classes of all time. Lattimore, Pro Bowler. Ramczyk, All-Pro. Marcus Williams, Alvin Kamara in round 3, Anzalone in round 3, Hendrickson in round 3, Al-Qadim Muhammad, who's still hanging around the league. You had every dude on that roster make the team, become contributors. And after that in 2017, I know my point of view became, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. When the Saints in 2018 traded up to get Marcus Davenport, I was like, you know what? If they've gone through their evaluations, they're bullish on a guy, they want to give up an asset to go get him because they think he's going to be awesome, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. Hey, look, I crushed them in 2017 for trading up to get Alvin Kamara. Remember, you had Mark Ingram, and in that offseason, you signed Adrian Peterson. Then they go into the draft, and they trade up for a running back. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Well, ultimately, they cut Adrian Peterson, or traded Adrian Peterson, and Kamara became the all-time touchdown leader in franchise history. But look at what's happened since. You can only live off that dead carcass for so long.
Yeah, I know we just looked at this, but I mean, what's happened since is not that bad. What's happened since, if you just look at the middle rounds, if you don't look at your top picks, because he's saying, like, you kind of want to hit, his whole point is you got to hit late in the draft. Since 2017, admittedly, 2018 is a mess. 2018 is a mess. Total disaster. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, McCoy in the second, but CJ in the fourth. Again, you don't have a third. Then you have thirds. You go Zach Bond, okay? Adam Troutman, whatever, but Zach Bond, all-pro linebacker. Paulson Adebo in the third. Pretty nice. Pete Werner in the second. Lonte in the second. Like, since then, and the book is still out on these two classes, but... And this is kind of like... This is kind of where you're looking at it and people say, like, the team just can't draft or the front office can't draft. And they point to, Turner, Davenport. But if you look at it as a whole, I'm not saying they're the greatest drafting team in NFL history, but if you look at it as a whole, I don't think you can say it's a disaster. I don't think you can say it's all like overarchingly bad. And then right now, like, a lot of this really, I don't like going back like this in the moment that the Saints are in, because it's such a transitionary period. Like, the idea of defensive line, like I was just about to say, well, the Saints really don't draft, like, you could argue they do not draft edge rushers very well. Like, you could argue that's a part that they consistently miss on, right? Like, if you're looking in the last 10 years, like you're looking at, let's just look at defensive ends. Marcus Davenport, miss. Peyton Turner. You're looking at even Isaiah Foskey. Okay, and again, book's still kind of out. But then if you sit back and think, like, well, we don't know how they're going to draft edge players now. It's a completely different defense. Like, it's a completely different system. It's a completely different scheme. So I don't know. Even though Mickey Loomis is still there, even though some of the front office is still there and the scouting department is still there, totally different puzzle that they're trying to put together here. So I have no clue how they're going to approach some of these players. I have no clue how Kellen Moore is going to approach the offensive players he's looking at. It's the same like what we just talked about with the Rams. If Sean McVay is not the head coach of the Rams, they are not targeting similar players because they're not doing similar things. I use this metaphor all the time, but it's like a kitchen or a restaurant. If a restaurant sources ingredients a certain way, and then they change the head chef, even if the general manager, even if the owners, even if all that's the same, the head chef is going to source ingredients differently. He's going to look for different things, look for different flavors, look for different profiles or whatever. Like, there are so many intricacies to this. So, like, right now is the worst possible time to look back at how they have drafted, what they have done, because you could, even with Sean Payton leaving, you can still look at a lot of these defensive players and say, well, Dennis Allen's there, Dennis Allen's there, Dennis Allen's there. Like, Dennis Allen's the one who is driving how they're sourcing their ingredients defensively, right? Whereas Sean Payton was driving that offensively for a long time. Well, now they're totally gone. And so how are we supposed to truly know, how are we supposed to truly know how they're going to source those ingredients in this draft?
2018, Marcus Davenport, Traquan Smith.
Yeah, 2018 is a disaster.
Rick Leonard, Natrell Jamerson, Cameron Moore, Boston Scott, and then Will Clapp.
Yeah, it's a
the
mess.
Two best picks were your last two picks, and neither are on the team. Well,
yeah.
Will
Clapp is now, yeah.
2019, you didn't have a first-round pick. You drafted Eric McCoy. You hit. You drafted C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You traded him. Saquon Hampton, Alizé Mack, and Caden Ellis. You couldn't re-sign Caden Ellis. Seventh-round pick you hit on. You couldn't keep him.
So it is interesting, though, that in those 2 years, they both hit on their seventh-round pick, which is kind of what Matt's entire point is that you got to be able to hit late. Even in those bad classes, which I wouldn't call 2019 bad, but you still hit on your seventh-round pick.
Go to 2020. Cesar Ruiz, Zach Bond, we know the story there. Adam Troutman never materialized. Tommy Stevens, what a joke.
Four picks, 50% hit rate. Okay, if you think about it percentage-wise, look at it like that as well.
You go into 2021. Peyton Turner, another whiff on a first rounder. Pete Werner's been a good player when he's been healthy. Same with Paulson Adebo, but he's gone now. Ian Book was here for a year, then he's gone. Landon Young's been a versatile offensive lineman for you, and then Kawan Baker. 22 was Olave, Penning, Alante Taylor, DeMarco Jackson, and Jordan Jackson. That draft class has largely been mired in injury, and Trevor Penning being kind of a bust, but maybe trying to salvage himself a little bit.
Yeah.
23 was Brzee, which feels like a hit.
I mean, again, like, I know I keep saying this, but you got to kind of 2023, 2024, you got to kind of still say like asterisk, like we don't really fully know what's going to come of these players.
Foskey, which is a miss. Kendre Miller, a miss. Nick Saldivero, you trade up to the first pick of day 3. He hasn't been a contributor for you. Jay Kaner, Jordan Howden, A.T. Perry no longer on the team. And then we just went through 2024. The point is, they made 41 selections. They've drafted 41 players. They've drafted 41 players since that 2017 draft class. Who would you count a hit?
All right, so if we go since now he is taking out 2017, 2016, but since 2018, I mean, it depends on how you view hit, obviously, but I think you could easily say Eric McCoy, CJ, K. Nelson, he's a 7th rounder, Cesar, Zach Bond, Peyton Turner, Pete Werner, Paulson Adebo, say Landon Young is a 6th rounder, Chris Olave, Alante Taylor. I'm hesitant to say Trevor. You can't say Trevor Penning. But again, these are all asterisks. Like 3 of these classes, like how are you supposed to grade these guys? Brzee, you could say a hit, I suppose. Fuaga's a hit. Kool-Aid's probably a hit. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how many that was, but I would throw those in there. I would probably say
maybe 10 guys of the 41 since 2017. Fuanga, McKinstry, Brzee, Olave, I guess we count as a hit. Pete Werner, Eric McCoy.
All right, we're going to do a little math here. So let's just take the numbers that Matt said, okay? What do you say, 10 out of 41? 11-ish, and just like back of the napkin math, so stay with me. 11, around 11 out of 41 is what, 20, 25%, let's just say. Let's just round off, make it easy numbers. I know it's not exact. The percentage for a draft pick to make an NFL roster, do y'all know what it is? Someone guess. Guess in the comments below. The percentage chance overall that a draft pick will make an NFL roster. Not contribute, not be an all-pro, not be an all-star, not be an MVP, make an NFL roster. The percentage of draft picks. The answer is 30%. 30% of draft picks make a roster. 53% of first rounders are considered hits. Okay. When you look at it through the spectrum of like the true percentages, hit rate by position, like all that stuff, and you look at the argument in this video is that the Saints are having trouble with draft picks. And even if you go on the low end, which I think 10 of those last 41 picks, I think is low. But if you look at the percentage of it, it's okay. Right? Like, to expect a 40% hit rate or a 50% hit rate for overall picks over the course of 10 plus years is obviously insane. Like, no team is going to do that. That is a crazy amount of success. So I think if you look at it mathematically, you could argue Now, granted, you can use numbers to argue anything, but I think you could argue mathematically the Saints are above average at drafting players and extracting value out of them.
I mean, it's slim pickings. Like, the sample size of misses has now overwhelmed that spectacular 2017 draft class, which makes us all think that's the outlier. That's the exception, not the rule. And they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. So my giant question for this year's draft class is, how much of that was Sean Payton, Dennis Allen, who are no longer here? How much was Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, who are still here? How much influence will Kellen Moore have? And I don't know the answer to that. So this is one of those years where you're going to go into the draft process, realizing there's one very different variable. There's no more Peyton, Dennis Allen, no more ties that bind of that era in that draft room.
It's
It's
two
Mickey
variables.
and Jeff Ireland, but then it's Kellen Moore. So if you see a different strategical approach, that's a pretty good indicator that Kellen Moore's got a pretty heavy hand in that room. And if
Well, obviously, he's the head coach. But, like, discounting Brandon Staley and discounting a completely different defense is crazy as well. There's a lot of variables. Like, you got to... Like, the covariance... I don't want to get into, like, these, like, super... I don't want to get any super, like, statistical terms. But there's a lot of correlation that goes into what the variables are. It's not just people, but it also goes in, like, scheme, system... what's going on in the NFL, what type of player, what type of body, what type of, even the Staley thing, like just going from a 4-3 to a 3-4, I don't care who the coach is, like that is going to drastically change how you view players. Then you look at how old is the coach, what do they prioritize, what's happening in the NFL? Are edge rushers more important or interior defensive line? What's more important, stopping the quarterback or stopping the run? What's, all of that factors in. And then you throw in like the needs of the team that's ever changing and ever fluid. So there's way more variables if you're doing your Z-score and your standard deviation scores. There's way more variables than just like who's in the room.
If not, it's more of the same. And do we really trust them to get it right? It's fascinating when you go to a year like this because when you're a roster that has so many needs, it's hard to go wrong. It's like fishing with dynamite. Like, just throw it in the water. I mean, something's going to come up that you need. I mean, you're going to go draft positions that you need. But are they going to be guys that consistently contribute for you?
Like another thing you could look at if you're doing the math or whatever, you could look at the percentage chance of hit rate at pick. Okay, so obviously the higher pick you have, the higher percentage chance of a hit rate because you have more players to choose from. Like you if you're picking from the entire group, should be able to identify the better players, whatever. So if you look at the picks, like what do you think is the percentage chance of hitting on a quarterback in the 4th round, right? Like what is the percentage chance of hitting on a tight end in the 7th round? What is the percentage chance of hitting on a running back in the 6th round? And if this percentage is like 3% and you miss, it's like, okay, yeah, you had a 3%? You had a 97% chance to miss, right? Now here, Marcus Davenport, what is the percentage chance of hitting a defensive end in the first and at pick 14 is probably closer to like 45%, 50%. So this is more of a like, hey, more you should be hitting these. Even the hit rate for a defensive end at pick 14, I would be shocked if it's above 55, 60%. I know it's not. So it's probably closer to 50, 45%. And you can just do that over and over. Like what is and so then if you look at where they are picking, like last year, these percentage chances of, I bet if you looked at this entire class, because we already know, like we'll just do some quick back of napkin math. So if you look at this class, okay, there's 7 picks. we know that 30%, around 30% of drafted players make an NFL roster. Even if you only say Talise Fuaga and Kool-Aid are the hits, all right, so 2 out of 7. 2 out of 7 is what, like 27%, something like that? So it's right there on what we know is the percentage. And yeah, most of these guys are not playing right now. We don't know what they'll be. I mean, it's only been a year. But as of right now, you would say about 27%. Okay. If you give Spencer Rattler, though, like 0.3 of a hit, because he wasn't supposed to play, we don't know, he showed signs, whatever. If you say it's a 2.3 out of 7 hit rate, that bumps it up to like a 32% hit rate, which would be above average. So, it's one of those things where, like, and this is my big gripe with a lot of this narrative, a lot of these conversations. I'm not saying the Saints are hitting at a 75-80% rate. I'm not saying I expect the Saints to make 9 picks and 6 of them be all pros. I'm not saying we're about to get 9 Hall of Famers drafted. I'm saying the Saints are at worst average at drafting. And sometimes they are really, really good at drafting. Like 2016, 2017, 2019 even. Like right here, 2022, Chris Olave, Trevor Penning, Alontae Taylor being 3 out of 5 picks. Pretty sporty. So, and Trevor Penning, again, book's still out. But my whole gripe is that people see something that's average or above average, and because of the magnifying glass, they say it's the worst. There's no way you can look at the last 10 years and argue that the Saints are below average or worse or the worst or horrible or epidemic or whatever at drafting. There's no way. We just did the math. All right? Same as when we're looking at the team overall, like when we were going into last year. My argument was that the Saints are an average to above average team, somewhere in that 8, 9, 10 win range. And when I heard Colin Cowherd or whoever saying this is the worst team in the NFL, it's like, brother, what? Now, injuries and all that changed things, which obviously they weren't predicting injuries. They were obviously flat wrong because at full strength, they were nowhere near the worst team in the NFL. Like that, the black and white is what I push back on. I'm not even being wholly positive. Like, I'm not being this insane optimistic. I'm just saying there is a big gray area, and the Saints live in that gray area. And to act like they're either the worst or the best is crazy. It's absolutely insane. Right? So I think we got to give the Saints the benefit of the doubt that they have a lot of picks. I mean, they haven't picked in the top 10 since 2008. Like that is a factor. That is a big difference. Right? So for the first time since 2008, we're seeing them pick in the top 10. Okay? We have a lot of draft picks. I mean, you look at all these drafts, like they're all missing those middle picks. Like we have third rounders. We are existing in that world. Kellen Moore, Brandon Staley, there's a lot to be excited about. So I am absolutely giving them the benefit of the doubt that they are going to be able to get a relatively high on average amount of impact players. And who knows? The top end might be super high, like the Giants were last year or the Raiders were last year. And then we may be sitting here talking about us being a top 5 draft class. This is what PFF had as what the second best draft class or the third best draft class from last year. Malik Neighbors is, again, had a super high elite level rookie season. Okay. But if you look at this class, who are the hits? Right? Like from an outside looking in. From an outside looking in, who are the true like hits? Who are the guys where you're like, damn, this is next level. This is what can change a franchise. Like this is it. This is what it's all about. Tyron Tracy had sparks last year, but he had sparks, okay? But it's super top heavy. So the Saints could absolutely, if they nail the 9th overall pick and get a super top heavy draft class, they could be a top 3, top 4 draft class going into next year. But I don't see this class right here, and I'm not sitting here going like, damn, the Giants have it figured out. I mean, the Giants are just hit after hit after hit. I was not expecting this video to be this long. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Get on down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.